had such exciting sessions till now. Huh? So we have to make our session a lot more exciting. And there has been discussion around use cases and all of 5G, and so much of talk. So maybe we can have some discussions around that. But just to kind of give a quick recap of what's really happening as far as our topic is concerned, right? Communication, connectivity, and AI for business growth. I think if I look at the main thing that is kind of driving a lot of these things is overall digital transformation, which has kind of grown around 18% over the past 3 years. And moving forward, again, reports suggest that 60% of enterprise revenue is going to be contributed by digital business models. That's the kind of thing we're talking about over here. Okay, which obviously means it's on every CEO's agenda when we look at digital transformation. The second thing is around this, the AI piece, which is, what should I say is that not the AI piece, but as far the digital public infrastructure, right? Which is the entire Aadhaar and UPI, which are going to contribute and make India into a $1 trillion digital economy by 2030. That's the second thing. And the third most important pillar is, of course, connectivity, right? Without it, we cannot have the other two happen. And we already had so much of discussion around 5G, and we talked about the fastest 5G rollout in the country. Just to add some data to that, I think we had some 2 lakh towers in 8 months across 700 districts in the country. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So essentially, it's they're all going hand in hand. Communication forms a major pillar to enable the other things, and currently that's what we want to discuss. Discuss this in a little more deeper, and for that I'll start off with Arun. I think basically I've given some data and thrown the importance of all these three elements, but I think it's important that you can shed some light around the role of this communication, connectivity, and AI in in enterprise innovation. But also to add to that, look at AT&T's global reach also as far as your network is concerned, and how are really Indian businesses able to leverage this network to accelerate this entire pace of innovation and digital transformation. There's cloud adoption also happening. There is edge computing also happening. So maybe you want to just give your views on this.
Well, thank you, Anil, and thank you for setting the context so well. And I feel so excited to be among such great industry players. I would say brothers and sisters in arms. We have been for long, so it's good to be here. And the topic itself is so intriguing and exciting. So, Anil, we were discussing just prior to coming into the hall here that communications, connectivity, and AI are really the three pillars of digital transformation. And you mentioned very well that they actually sort of are interconnected. They work in tandem. They probably feed off each other as well, and they enable each other. And that's so very true. I mean, these are the three pillars which are really driving enterprise innovation, bringing forth new innovations in terms of products, services, processes, what have you. Now, as enterprises adopt more and more digital tools and platforms, communications and communication tools become that much more critical. So, we are all aware that in these times, instant messaging, video conferencing, voice collaboration, collaborative workspaces, these are the engines of the enterprise that keep the enterprise really running, because they bring together the workforce. They can collaborate in real time, take instant decisions, spark of innovation. And when you combine those with the modern communication technologies like 5G and hopefully 6G, which is on the horizon, somebody mentioned FWA in the previous session. When you combine all of these, this really leads to the acceleration of innovation within enterprises. And of course, for all this, connectivity is key. If communications is the backbone, then connectivity is like the circulatory or nervous system of the enterprise. And here the whole thing is that you need, at the enterprises, to sort of keep the innovation going, need to make sure that people, systems, processes, machines, they're all connected seamlessly, ubiquitously, in a reliable manner with fast connectivity. And this is where, the role of the telcos is really morphing, I would say. I'm sure the peers here would agree that now telcos are not about transporting bits and bytes. It's more about being what I would call network-centric technology solutions providers. So I know it's a mouthful, but hopefully that captures the essence of what connectivity these days is all about. And what are telcos doing about connectivity? Two or three things, and I'm sure this is all across the board. First is investing big time in core connectivity infrastructure. So think of fiber optic networks, 5G rollouts, edge computing capabilities, so on and so forth. And these investments are necessary if you have to really cater to the current environment where there are a lot of data intensive applications and processes that are really the fuel for the enterprise. The other thing is investing big time in virtualization and automation. So by virtualizing network functions and automating network management processes, this is where the telcos are seeking to build flexible and agile networks which can cater to the ever-changing demands of the business, which is a result of digital transformation process itself. Now, talking of AI, AI is really disrupting the way enterprises operate, how they do business, how they bring forth new products, how they servitize new offerings. So the power of AI and ML combined is really bringing the power of data to the enterprise. And by in terms of predictive analytics, in terms of driving automation, and then bringing forth new use cases across industries, whether it be healthcare or manufacturing or retail. Now, there's a lot of buzz these days about generative AI, a lot of interest. And it is interesting to see the applications of generative AI in the enterprise space. So for example, in the space of manufacturing and engineering, the integration of generative AI has really sparked off a huge innovation. So, designing complex products or optimizing very complex manufacturing processes is never easy. But in this space, generative AI has emerged as a major ally because of the ability to generate multiple design iterations and also bringing forth simulations that would help bring forth not only efficient products and services, but also these are not unimaginably creative. So that's the overall scenario on the three pillars. Now, speaking of AT&T's global capabilities and global networks, as we mentioned that India is the fastest growing major economy right now, and that would be the case for the foreseeable future as well. And what that has meant is that Indian enterprises are really going global with a vengeance. They're really pushing the boundaries, taking their businesses global. And this has also meant they are adopting new technologies, emerging technologies. There's a lot of cloud adoption. So a global network like AT&T's, which spans about 200 countries, we have about 600 petabytes of data flowing on a network on an everyday basis. We provide seamless connectivity to more than 500 plus cloud service provider environments. And what this does is it gives the ability to the enterprises to connect their on-prem infrastructure to cloud solutions in a seamless manner. And especially when in these times, this is the times of multi-cloud hybrid environments. And what that means is that telcos like us, and all the peers in the industry, we are called upon to provide what I would call composable network elements. Composable means those elements that can be readily tuned on the fly to changing business needs. Now, telcos have never operated in that manner. We have been very fixed, hardware-centric kind of operations, but now that's all changed. With virtualization, automation, composability is a reality. So I'll give you a quick example. For example, we at AT&T have brought forth this managed digital infrastructure service, and under that we offer something called TAO. TAO stands for Total Access Orchestration. And what it is basically, it's a virtualized network infrastructure platform that enables rapid deployment of enterprise networks across more than 500 plus cloud service provider environments. So think of it as a digital ecosystem which solves the challenges of multi-cloud adoption and integration by way of providing a pre-built virtualized infrastructure platform that is co-located globally with cloud service provider environments and connects to those environments using very fat pipes, like 100 gig pipes. And what it does is it is ready to take in customers' customizable solutions and build those using standard building blocks. And those building blocks could be either in the physical form factor or the virtualized form factor. The other big aspect is edge computing. Now, there's a lot of action at the edge. There's been discussion in the prior panels also that a lot of action is actually shifting to the edge because the use cases are such that they require the compute and analytics power to be concentrated right where the data is being generated or originated or consumed. So you need to concentrate all the compute and analytics power there. So telcos like us have built out our own edge computing networks by distributed edge computing servers being utilized. And all sectors of the economy are sort of trying to use that edge compute power to really bring forth a lot of innovative real-time use cases which earlier would not have possibly been plausible in a sense. So that's one. And there, again, I would say technologies like 5G, when they combine with multi-access edge compute, that's when the real power of edge computing really comes forth. The other aspect that I would quickly mention is the whole aspect of software-defined networking. And in this space, SD-WAN, as we all know, is making sure that the power of SDN is not just limited to the service provider core or data center or the LAN. It is out on the WAN. And there it is combining with cloud-delivered security services or secure services edge to actualize the SASE architecture. And SASE is a great enabler of digital transformation because it enables work from anywhere environments, it enables zero trust, it enables the uptake of edge computing, it enables the consumption, large-scale consumption of cloud-delivered services and applications. So having a global network which can offer all these features and functionality at scale, consistently, with the same SLAs across the world is obviously a great advantage. So, those were my opening thoughts. Anil, sorry, I went on a little bit, but I thought that I have to do justice to the questions.
No, absolutely. Thanks. I think very well said. You've spoken of some very, very interesting points, especially about the kind of 600 petabytes of data that is flowing through the network, and so many other points around connectivity and composability. That's a very interesting thing. But taking the data story forward, I'm going to ask Himanshu this question. Data, of course, is growing like anything, right? There's reports again that say 175 zettabytes of data, right, will be generated by next year. One zettabyte is equal to 1 billion terabytes. That's the kind of scale that we're talking about. And I think HP has done a lot around data-driven digital transformation. And of course, this is not going anywhere. We're seeing this kind of growth. And the fact is that, Arun talked about AI and made my job easier that, AI data is the fuel for AI, right? So maybe you want to, help us tell us about what's the strategy around AI and Gen AI, given this kind of data growth that's happening.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me on this panel. I think Arun covered most of it regarding the three pillars, and I personally feel the most relevant and important pillar going forward, because we have the two pillars already set, is going to be AI, and more so Gen AI. If you look at the recent study done by Accenture, 73% of enterprises, they are saying they're going to actually focus on AI and park the funds there rather than just working on digital transformation from a digital capability perspective. So AI is going to be the most important place where money is going to flow. Secondly, 89% of those enterprises are saying, please help me direct my simple models which we're trying to build onto production. So there is a huge expectation from the market, and this is talking primarily from the enterprise side. If you look at the AI as a whole, and it is important to demystify, AI in itself is encompassing everything, and it has been happening from 1950s, thanks to the times of Alan Turing, the famous cryptographer from UK, who was there during the World War II. That momentum has carried on, And AI started, being discussion for science and fiction. And you all remember what happened in Star Treks of the world. We have those agents supporting Captain Kirk, right? Those were the times of stories, but stories do become real. And after 50 years, I would say 40 years, we are seeing a time when AI has actually reached that stage. If I were to look at some of the futurists which talked about recently, Mr. Ray Kurzweil, he said by 2029, we'll be able to reverse engineer the brain, which means we'll reach a stage which is called AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. I will come to the different phases of AI. And by 2047, actually he says we'll reach a term he coined as singularity, wherein humans will merge with machines and they will exponentially grow the intelligence. Now, these could have been, talked by futurists, but some of it has become a reality as of now. Sitting today, I think most of the GPUs which are being sold in the world are being, I would say, cornered by the likes of Metas and Teslas, and Microsoft and OpenAI and the likes. So if you look at the total landscape of AI or the so-called generative AI going forward, which is driven by large scale or large language models, LLMs, it is basically one side you have the AI consumers, which is the enterprises and SMBs and mid-markets. Another side you have the AI producers, which are these big hyperscalers, big tech companies who have the resources, the talents, and the know-how with software stacks being available to them. So it's going to be a very, very different world going forward. And I personally feel it is going to be the most disruptive technology of this century, because it is not going to come in bits and pieces. It is going to be a tsunami. And you see the type of investments going in the country and globally. And we already talked in the earlier panel what happened to the shares of NVIDIA and why they have risen. So AI being the overarching technology, Gen AI being part of it. And how does it come? It comes from machine learning. And within machine learning, you have the deep learning. And the deep learning, because deep learning is based on how you mimic a human brain, okay? It is how you store information in different levels, and using parameters and different mathematical algorithms and models, you're able to actually store lots and lots of data, which we call as parameters or hyperparameters in the large language model parlance as of today. And when you build those billions and billions of parameters and you're able to interconnect, you're able to store information at different levels. And using the mathematical modeling, you're able to actually use probabilistic distribution to really work on large data sets and able to come with some relevant output. And that's where the so-called generative AI becomes so important, because the one side you have the users and one side you have the producers of AI. And telecom networks become very, very important. Telecom providers become very important, because they will now realize that they have to be part of this game and become from a pure telco, move up the value chain towards a techco or a tech company. And if you look at the last 1 year, I think telco already announced telco OpenAI forum. And that's where I think 4 different telcos came together. You have Singtel joining it, Etisalat, you have Singapore Telecom, and you have Deutsche Telekom. You have SK Telecom and Deutsche Telekom coming together. And in fact, one of the use cases on generative AI used by these as one of the initiatives is between Deutsche Telekom and South Korea Telecom, SK Telecom, coming together to build digital assistants and digital assistant for customer service. And that is going to really help them, bring down the cost, improve efficiency. At the same time, make the customer experience really, really, out of the world, which is currently not there, and also bring down the cost. So some of these elements are going to be very, very important. I will cover later maybe what is HP's strategy when it comes to demystifying Gen AI and how we actually build the Gen AI approach to scale and how we can really take the journey forward. But going forward, I think it's important both for telcos as well as the enterprises who are going to use and consume to be part of this AI lifecycle, and how this particular momentum can be cashed in the minimum possible time. That's how it is.
Thanks, Himanshu. I think great perspectives around AI and where it's heading, especially singularity part. I mean, we are already seeing some part of it emerge where we cannot do without some of the generative AI when we're trying to ask questions, and it's solving a lot of problems for us. And it's at an early stage, but the way things are moving, it's going to really move ahead. And the role of telcos. So Speaking of role of telcos, Salil, I think Reliance Jio has been, implementing a lot of emerging technologies. What do you really foresee in terms of, when we talk about communication and connectivity solutions? How do you really see some of the trends there to, that are shaping the future of business? We heard some good yeses, but what you are doing would be great to hear.
Yeah, thanks, Anil. Thanks for the conducting this panel. First disclaimer: we hate to be called a telco. We are India's first digital services company, and that's what we aim to become. That's what we want to be known for, and this was a clear from the day one. So, as a digital services player, we identified that besides the three pillar which Arun and Himanshu are talking about, the connectivity, the communication, the edge compute, the cloud infrastructure, and then the AI/ML layer on top of it. I think the way we see it is that at the lowest layer there are the devices or the sensors which are going to be billions now in the 5G era. That is going to need network, which is for communication and connectivity. On top of it is going to be the cloud infrastructure, which in India is already quite evolved and evolving further. On top of it, there are going to be platforms, various platforms, which are maybe natural language processing, AR, XR, etc., etc. So many others. And then there is going to be the application layer. And AI is going to touch each and every portion. And AI needs that kind of a huge database to work upon, which is going to be provided by the billions of sensors and devices which are going to be in the network, carried by the network, carried onto the cloud, then reaching the platform. There is the AML engine working. So we see the value stack as these distinct layers or pillars. And we as Geo are maybe one of the only companies in India which is directly playing in all these layers, right from devices and sensors, which again is Make in India, our own intellectual property. Network, obviously, the fastest 5G rollout in the world, largely contributed by Geo. We have our own platform company called Geo Platforms. Then again, we are again working on bringing AI as a very cost viable layer to come for AI for all or AI for every citizen for this country. So this is how we see the overall stack, the value stack of the business. Let me give you a perspective on the macro level. India today, as it travels from a 3 trillion economy to a 5 trillion economy with a 7% plus GDP growth rate, we know that over next few years the level of business is going to grow because of the huge investments which government of India is making into digital public infrastructure, plus the investments which are going into both creating world-class physical as well as digital infrastructure. It will also spur the investment by the private organizations, private companies, private industries. Net, we are definitely on that growth journey from 3 trillion to 5 trillion. But along with that, there is a very important statistics which, as Indians, all of us must know. Today, India spends around 1.3% of its GDP, or 1.3% of the business revenue of every company goes into the ICT spend. For China, it is 2.4%, and for US, it is around 4.5%. So as we become more evolved, more digitally transformed, the ICT spend within the same economy is going to double. So which means the business is going to double. Today, it is said that Indian ICT spend is around 35 to 40 billion dollars, which is directly a 1.3% of the 3.3 trillion or 3 trillion economy that we are today. Organic growth, this will go from 35 to 40 billion dollars to 50, 60 billion dollars. But because we are in a rapid digital transformation age, this will, when it becomes 2.4% of the overall revenue of the companies, this again will touch around 100 billion dollars as we become a 5 trillion economy. So there's a huge business, but that business will not come in connectivity and communication. That is going to be only 10% of the overall, this ICT spend. So there is going to be hardware, software, the AI ML related services, the platforms, the managed services, etc., etc. And if we have to see the future, if you have to peep into the future, I think we can clearly see that the capability which is given now by 5G as a digital information superhighway, which India has created, covering each and every nook and corner of this large country that we have, and the possibility to do edge computing at any place wherever it is required, where either the data is being generated or either the data is being consumed. Capability to carry that data to cloud, capability to carry that data into the platforms where it is going to be processed upon, and delivering the business outcomes. More and more, we are also seeing that the organizations, the business organizations, are not paying for product or services. They want to pay for the business outcomes. And that's going to be possible when all the layers work together and give a predictable business outcome to the organizations, to our enterprise customers. And that's our play. That's where we have invested into a lot of deep tech companies also in the various startups, whether it's a AR, VR, XR tech startup, or it's a drone tech startup, or it's a natural language processing tech startup. So we are making the right investment so that we have the capability to give the end outcome based business which these companies are demanding. That's what we see. We see 5G as a great enabler. The business has already started happening in multiple fields, whether it is mining, ports, healthcare, education, retail, and automobile manufacturing, the smart utilities, which is riding on the NB-IoT wave. So everywhere you can see that this technology Amrit Kal that we are entering into now is going to yield much superior and much better outcomes, both in terms of a business as well as customer experience, as well as growth of the economy. So I think that's what I would like to wrap up as my opening remarks.
Thanks, Salil. I think great very encouraging to hear that. I think it's more about a platform that is offering the overall services for business growth, and it's about driving business outcomes. That's what's more important. Working with various startups and all, and I love that thing about technology Amrit Kal that we are getting into. It is indeed a technology Amrit Kal. Moving more specific into customer experience. Ultimately, everything boils down to what kind of experience that you give to the customer. They work on multiple channels, they reach out to multiple channels, but I think what's really important is that they need to have a more personalized customer experience now. So I'll now ask Sheena about that, about what is the interplay of this communication connectivity solutions to kind of personalize and enhance the customer experience.
Yes. Thank you. That's one of my key questions and my key areas being the customer impact of collaboration or communication and connectivity and AI. Now, customers for me is not just your external customers, right? It's also your internal employees who are your customers. And I'm going to give you some examples or use cases about how connectivity and communication and AI can actually create a collaborative workflows which can actually get a collaborative experience or a much seamless experience for customers. So I'm going to pick up, and while there are a lot of technologies, and while Salil said, telcos are really now actually techcos and not really only telcos. So let me pick up an example from the connectivity space saying cloud, and from the collaboration space being unified communication as a service and real-time messaging, and from AI is vast, right? Let me try to bring you these three aspects and tell you about how we can change internal experience and external experience. So we work in a hybrid world and we work in a phygital world, right? Physical and digital combined. So take an example, one of the most biggest things that we have to do is make presentations, right? And in this hybrid and phygital world, I'm going to put the example with me in place, right? I'm traveling and I end up leaving my meeting notes of presentation at home. But I'm not really worried because when I reach office, I can actually download those digital notes or the meeting notes that I have from the cloud. It doesn't matter whether it was left at home or a different office. I have the cloud and it's giving me seamless connectivity on my meeting notes. I use my digital assistant to actually book a meeting room because there are thousands of meeting rooms and I know which one is available. And once I go into the meeting room, I have to connect to, let's say, Vodafone France. The tools are there, and maybe Vodafone France server does not allow huge presentations. So I use an instant messaging tool to transfer my presentation onto their forum. And while I'm presenting, I can actually have uh, prompt notes that come to me or speaker notes that come to me to prompt and give it to them. Meanwhile, for Vodafone France over there, they can actually have a translator. The AI tool actually translates it and uses it in French, and they can really understand even if I'm speaking in English or Hindi or even in Mumbai in Marathi. So I don't really have to worry about languages, with the diversity in India upon it there. Not just there, if there, the presentation always has a time limit like this forum, and I can actually say that build a digital twin and all the matter that was there in the presentation, use it for answering questions even after this forum. So those are various things that can enable an internal person's life or an internal employee's life. Now coming on to your external customer, okay, there are multiple again there. We have today the most biggest thing is chatbots, right? You have a chatbot on a social media platform, you have a chatbot on your app, you have a chatbot on the website. How can I use the information across all these bots to create a personalized experience for my customer? There's data around there, right? So the next time that he logs in, I have that entire information available and I can use it to personalize or recommend something for the customer that really meets his requirement. It's a recommendation engine. I can use the insights that come from all the customer interactions to actually contextualize the message and send them a marketing mail. In one of the earlier sessions by Prabhu, I think he mentioned that the AI cases are generally in customer service and in marketing. But this is how seamless it can get. You have bots, you have connectivity. Not just that, when I, in telcos or techcos, the infrastructure that provides it is a very key element in service, right? The infrastructure can be used by AI, all the connectivity elements that are there. You can actually predict the mean time before failure. And when you do that, you know that this is a customer downtime that might happen because of the various elements that are used in connectivity. And you can actually take proactive maintenance for it. So this is how I build a predictive maintenance. So I'm going away from reactive customer care. I'm going away from proactive customer care, and I'm moving to the third element, which is the predictive customer care. How can I recommend? And this requires integration between all these elements, whether it is communication devices, whether it is connectivity devices or AI. So it's not just one or the other, it's a combination of all three across there. And that is the business proposition that is there for customers across. The possibilities are really great. And it's just about how much we leverage and how we leverage it to deliver what we want as an experience to customers. That's where I would leave it at this point.
Thanks, Sheena. Thanks for sharing, that, your views around how do you tackle internal as well as external customers, with technology and all the pillars. That's, great views on that. I think we're not living in an isolated world, right? We're living now in a more and more connected world. And if we are to succeed, it's important to have the right collaboration, and partnerships and all, which is, why my next question to Saibal is, considering that, today we need collaboration, we need partnerships. So, how are communication service providers, like Airtel, helping businesses in building such a connected ecosystem, with partners and vendors?
Thank you, Anil, and having me on this esteemed panel. And a lot has already been talked about by the esteemed panel members here. So that leaves for me to talk very less, but people have already covered a lot. So in the particular context, if I may say, from a value proposition to our customers, Airtel has been always the strongest proponent in doing partnership. And I'm going back to the days when Airtel did the first outsourcing deals and the partnership which happened, which was Ericsson of the world, and then we did IBMs of the world, all that we have been doing. And that's the reason today we have reached to that level where we are, and the trust of the customers, which we definitely have built on over the years. The other thing, if I may talk about, is today, all the telcos actually need to be rechristened as the name of techcos. We are no more a telco, because ultimately, and I voice out the perspective which Arun talked about, that everything revolves around the connectivity, but yes, there is the value proposition which has to be there in and around, which we give to our actual customers. Again, taking a cue from Salil's point, we actually are looking at solutions to be provided to our customers for the enterprise piece. And solutions can only come in that when you say that it is not a partisan solution which you offer, you have a complete solution. So if I may say today, in the enterprise world, you talk about any industry segment. Let's take, if I may say, the biggest digitization which has happened is in the fintech industry. The fintech industry is the biggest proponent where you see those sound boxes. That's a big play which came out. And today, if you go abroad, you will not find these sort of solutions which are there. Even till today, they don't exist there. But India is in the state where everybody is using that. Even a kirana wala is using, everybody on the side of the road uses that. That is all an amalgamation of the telco as well as the solution provider there, which happens. So in this particular context, what we do is, in fact, this actually has aggregated to a level that we have reached to a level that we are able to give a concise solution. Now, if I talk about in the IoT space, now this is the biggest area the journey is going to be there, where we is going to be that 3 years back, Airtel was nowhere there in this particular space. Today, we enjoy a 56% market share. How we have done, in fact, fintech was the biggest proposition which was there, and then came in fact, now the smart utility perspective which is coming in. The smart meter is the biggest area of growth. And if I can tell you, there are 25 crore homes which have to get connected on smart meters, which is the Digital India's forum and our Honorable Prime Minister's vision which has to be there. So everybody is in fact geared to that. And today, if I talk about, it is not only the connectivity which we offer the entire embedded solution across connectivity and as well as the HES, as well as the MDM. This is all on the basis of partnership basis. Now, if I go quickly onto the private network, which our previous panel was talking about, private network is all about partnerships. If you have to give a private network, telco is one particular piece out there, but there's a whole lot of sensors which has to be looked into. The entire thing will only happen if you are able to make this particular thing work together. So at the edifice of the entire perspective is that even in healthcare, if I have to do something, everything has to be based on partnership basis. So what we have in engines, specific engines, connectivity being the base in and around, but at the end of the day, this connectivity is actually the propagating perspective. But in fact, the network is there as the base, and then you have the other partners coming in, which is the sensor player, which is going to be there, the platform which is going to be there, the cloud player, which is going to be there. All across, we give the complete solution, which actually benefits the customer, which is the enterprise customer, which is again, you're looking at, what are you looking at? You're increasing your productivity and you're looking at cost efficiency. These are the two basic parameters which you look at from for an enterprise customer. If you are able to value add there, that is the whole value chain which you create. And I'm sure with the telco coming into that, as I said, recrystallining into techco, we can definitely value add and we are able to do this completely there. And that's the reason we have this, enjoy this trust of our enterprise customers.
Thanks, Saibal. I think very well said. We only have about 2.5 minutes, so I want to throw the floor open. So for any questions from the audience, if you'd like to ask any question to any of the panelists. There's a question there. Can we please take the mic there?
Anil, thanks for setting up the right context. Now, we see there is a constant evolution in the 5G use cases, and we are talking about generative AI being adopted. So how do you see the impact of generative AI in coming times on the network? Is the age going to get changed or?
Yeah, please.
I'd like to give you something that we are working on, and I think which has a lot of potential on generative AI. On the ones that you mentioned, whether it's communication, collaboration, or any of those cases that are there in the 5G use cases, right? One of the huge things that is required is IT testing, right? We need to test before we actually roll it out to the customer or we roll it out across various pieces. And what generative AI can do is help build test cases. Okay, so test cases are scenarios where you can actually test before rolling it out so that the customer experience is seamless. So this entire journey and each test case writing typically takes around an hour, sometimes because of the detailing that is required. So generative AI, one of the use cases which is happening right now is this. Which can help you build use cases, whether it's rolling out 5G, whether it's rolling out any of the product or network connectivity platforms that are there.
My question was slightly different. With the generative AI, there will be huge pressure on the networks. So how the industry is envisaging this pressure, and how the architecture is going to change, whether it will be impacting the core and NVIDIA is going to become more stronger, or is something coming at the edge which is going to be disruptive at the edge. And there is a second question, Salil, with you. You stressed upon a very important point that consumer or will not be paying for products and services in forthcoming times, and it will be paying on the business outcomes. So can you give some matrices on what outcomes where the consumer will be paying for in the coming times, where we are talking about AI and generative AI?
Okay. So if you look at any business, whether it's a manufacturing business or a retail business, any business, essentially there are four parts. One, there is a uh, reduction of cost, which is by reducing the losses or the wastages, right? Then there is an increase in productivity. Then there is a opening up new revenue stream or expanding the existing revenue streams, and making the customer experience more digital and more superior. Now, in all these four subparts, customers are defining business outcomes that they are looking at. That okay, I want a 10% reduction in my wastage over next 10 quarters. So, or I want to open up a new revenue stream and it should become 10% of my overall revenue in next 10 quarters. So they are going to define such measurable and predictable business outcomes, which is going to be enabled by the digital services players by working across the value chain, whether you invest into devices sensors, whether you invest into a private 5G or a network slice, or you invest into a hybrid cloud, and then run a AI ML engine on that and deliver the outcome that the customer is looking for. So these are the some of the few examples. Yeah.
See, what you talked about is how the load will come on the network when Gen AI becomes more and more functional and becomes ubiquitous, right? Now you look at, as I talked earlier, it is a horizon. It's a full AI life cycle. On one side, you have AI producers, and side you have enterprises which are going to consume AI. Now, consumption of AI is not a place where a lot of network bandwidth would be consumed. You need high-end fabric parallel file system interconnects when you actually train the models. That's a place where a lot of high-end networking is required. But once you've trained the model, you actually fine-tune it, or you just use the model as it is. For example, ChatGPT from OpenAI, right? You can use it working with your ISVs, build an application, integrate that ChatGPT with your application, and start using even on a laptop or mobiles. We do that, right? Now you have these applications, so now the connectivity is not required to that extent because the model is trained. It's a small model running somewhere. You just have to access it. And with 5G being underpinning technology, I don't think bandwidth is going to be an area of concern or the architectures behind it. I think with Gen AI coming in and 5G being there, it is already set in place. And as you move into 6G, I think it will be far easier. So you don't have to worry on that part, absolutely.
I just wanted to add that this thing, infrastructure, if it increases, even if it increases in one area, because of the evolving ecosystem, will cause a decrease in another area. So I think from the net perspective and the four areas that Salil mentioned, it will just even out from whether it's expenditure, infrastructure, they just evens out because something going up here will reduce and something being down there. So that's how it will help.
In fact, I'll just take this. In fact, when we have started our rolling out of 5G, in fact, initially the challenges were where all we roll out and how much bandwidth we augment as such. But AI actually helped us in actually utilizing it the best. So where we need to upscale and downscale, all that, from the customer experience perspective, AI helped us in doing that. So even creating the 5G network, AI is helping. So that's a big use case. If I have to, there is definitely use cases which are there in complete cohesion for enterprise customers. For the network service provider also, we are actually using AI. So there are a lot of use cases which AI is actually helping us.
Actually, I'll give you a more direct answer. You asked about the impact of the generative AI onto the networks, whether networks will be able to cope up with the increased demand or not. You see, networks of 5G technology and beyond run on three pillars. One is the enhanced mobile broadband, ultra-low latency network, and massive machine-to-machine communication. These are the hallmark of a 5G network. It is designed to handle high data loads in terms of a high throughput, a lower latency of interactive responses, and massive machine-to-machine communication. The networks of 2G, 3G, 4G will collapse if there are lakhs of devices, sensors, polling the network at a defined frequency. But 5G is designed for that. So don't worry on that front. Generative AI load networks of 5G and beyond are designed to handle that.
I think we've overshot our time.
Yeah, I think that's one question where all panelists have answered and given their inputs.
Yeah.
But on that note, thank you so much, Anil, and thank you so much to all the panelists for being here and giving your insights on AI and the future and connectivity.